Have you ever stopped to wonder, what if the choices you make every single day, who you trust, who you fall head over heels for, or even exactly how you spend your hard-earned cash, what if those choices aren't really yours at all? What if, and bear with me here, you're literally being moved around like a chess piece, completely unaware that you're even on the board?
Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to completely pull back the curtain and expose the invisible forces that actually govern human behavior. We're taking 4 incredible masterclasses in human psychology, a classic political allegory, a literal manual on the art of seduction, the unapologetic laws of power, and the hidden behavioral traps of personal finance. And we're weaving them together.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting the invisible mind games, systems that manipulate you, the psychology of seduction, your brain against wealth, and finally, escaping the psychological traps.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the invisible mind games.
So, the absolute foundational point we have to accept, and this is a big one, is that human beings are primarily driven by emotion, not logic. Now, I know we all love to think of ourselves as these hyper-rational creatures, right? Carefully analyzing data to make the absolute best choices. But honestly, the truth is that our emotional blind spots are exactly the entry points dictators, seducers, and marketers absolutely exploit. They know that we basically just use reason to justify what we already feel. Whether it's a leader demanding your unwavering loyalty, a charmer looking for affection, or, a flashy ad for a luxury car, they aren't targeting your brain. No way. They're targeting your emotional voids. Okay, moving on to section 2, systems that manipulate you.
To really understand how massive populations are manipulated, we're going to look at George Orwell's classic, Animal Farm. This allegory brilliantly illustrates the actual timeline of manipulation, because, as it turns out, freedom isn't just lost in one single dramatic day. It's lost through tiny, unquestioned compromises. It always starts with a noble rebellion and a beautiful promise: all animals are equal. But then comes the compromise. The pigs, who act as the leaders of the farm, secretly start hoarding the milk and apples for themselves. Their justification? They need the brain power to lead. And because nobody stops them, the boundaries just shift. Then comes actual force. The aggressive pig, Napoleon, literally uses his trained dogs to violently exile his political rival. Finally, the descent into dictatorship is a done deal when the foundational rule gets quietly rewritten to all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating are the specific psychological mechanics they use to maintain that control. First up is fear. The pigs constantly warn that the old, abusive human farmer Mr. Jones will return if they aren't obeyed. Fear grabs your attention and practically guarantees compliance. Then there's repetition. Squealer the pig acts as the ultimate propagandist, repeating lies over and over until they just sound like the truth. Next, we see how authority literally kills questioning. The second Napoleon starts wearing medals, the animals just stop challenging him altogether. But the absolute most tragic mechanism here is emotional loyalty. Take Boxer, the incredibly strong, loyal horse. His response to literally every problem is just, "I will work harder." He's deeply emotionally loyal, but he never uses his logic, and the system entirely exploits his labor until the day he's sold to the slaughterhouse. Actually, this ties in perfectly to Robert Greene's 27th law of power: play on people's need to believe to create a cult of identity. Give people a cause, and they'll happily hand over their critical thinking.
Let's transition to section 3, the psychology of seduction. So, let's shift away from the political arena and look at how influence operates one-on-one. Seduction isn't actually about physical beauty, it is pure psychology. Just look at the stark contrast here. The magnetic seducer aims all their attention outward. They meticulously study their target, they embrace silence, and they create this irresistible aura of mystery. The anti-seducer? Well, they're basically a masterclass in repulsion. They focus entirely inward. Think of the chatterbox who just drowns you in endless details about their own life, or the miser who is incredibly tight with their time and money, or the suffocator who demands way too much attention way too soon. The bottom line, insecurity kills attraction, while outward curiosity completely builds it.
And the most effective seducers don't just rely on charm, they pinpoint exactly what their target is missing. Because let's face it, everyone carries some sort of emptiness. The disappointed dreamer, they grew up on fairy tales and secretly crave a storybook romance to rescue them from a boring life. The professor overanalyzes literally everything and is just begging for someone to overwhelm them with raw, unanalyzed emotion. The escapist feels totally trapped by their routine and wants adventure. And the monarch, like a powerful CEO or massive celebrity, they're surrounded by yes men, so they desperately crave someone who will just treat them with basic honesty and equality.
Whether it's a siren like Cleopatra constantly reinventing herself for Caesar, or a charismatic natural like JFK, true influence happens the moment you become the exact missing puzzle piece your target has been searching for.
Once that vulnerability is identified, influence follows a very specific process. Step 1 is separation. You literally have to pull the person out of their ordinary routine and stir up their curiosity. Next is triangulation, and this is fascinating. You create an aura of competition. Think of the 1920s film star Rudolph Valentino. Women didn't just want him, they wanted the man that other women wanted. When others are drawn to you, your value just skyrockets. And finally, suspense. You build the desire, but you never fully satisfy it. A little warmth, a little distance. By delaying that satisfaction, you keep their imagination working entirely in your favor.
Moving into Section 4, Your Brain Against Wealth.
Zooming inward to our final battleground, we're looking at how our very own ego and emotions wage war against our financial freedom. Financial author Morgan Housel puts it brilliantly. People do crazy things with money, but no one is really crazy. We all see the world through this tiny, highly subjective lens of our own personal experiences. I mean, someone who lost everything in a market crash is going to view risk very differently than someone who got rich during a massive boom, right? We like to think we're making these logical, spreadsheet-based decisions, but really, we're just acting out our own emotional history.
And this emotional blindness leads us straight into one of the biggest financial traps out there, confusing looking rich with being wealthy. When you see a sleek $100,000 Ferrari drive by, you don't think, wow, that driver is an amazing person. No, you think, wow, I would look so incredibly cool driving that car. This is what's known as the man-in-the-car paradox. We buy all these expensive, flashy things to earn admiration, but the joke is on us. People ignore us and just project their own desires onto our stuff. Looking rich is loud, but being wealthy? That's silent. True wealth is the unspent money, the hidden investment portfolio, the upgraded car you decided not to buy. Wealth is that invisible margin that actually grants you real peace of mind.
The completely counterintuitive nature of wealth building becomes super obvious when we look at Warren Buffett's net worth. We constantly praise his investing genius, but we completely ignore the actual math. Ready for this? A staggering $156 billion of his wealth came after his 65th birthday. Yeah, you heard that right. The secret wasn't chasing wild, crazy risks. It was simply staying in the game for over 80 years. Time and compounding are literally the ultimate heavy lifters. But we also have to remember that risk and luck are always in the room. Bill Gates became a billionaire thanks to brilliant strategy, for sure, but also the incredible luck of having access to a computer in 1968. His equally brilliant high school friend, Ken Evans, sadly died in a tragic mountaineering accident before graduation. Same brilliance, entirely different outcomes due to sheer luck and risk. We absolutely have to plan for that unpredictability.
Finally, Section 5, Escaping the Psychological Traps. All right, we've seen how systems, seducers, and our own financial egos manipulate us. So, how on earth do we escape? Well, here is your armor. First off, you must prioritize objective logic over emotional loyalty. Don't be Boxer the horse, blindly working yourself into the ground for a system or a leader who doesn't actually care about you. Use your emotional intelligence to see through the manipulation. Second, define your enough. Just look at the tragic fall of young billionaires like Sam Bankman-Fried. The guy had billions, but he entirely lacked the concept of enough, kept pushing for more status, and lost the whole shebang. Find your line and protect it fiercely. Third, always leave a margin of safety in your life and your finances to absorb unexpected bad luck. And lastly, practice Law 48 of power, formlessness. Be like water. If you commit rigidly to one single strategy, one identity, or one plan, you become completely predictable. And predictable people, they're the easiest ones to manipulate.
When you actively apply this armor, you unlocked the real goal here. We aren't just chasing power or money to hoard it in a vault, we're chasing true freedom. As Morgan Housel defines it, freedom isn't about material excess. It's actually the ultimate financial dividend, the absolute total control over your own time. It's the ability to wake up every single morning and say, I can do whatever I want, when I want, with who I want, for as long as I want.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Take a really close look at your life right now. In the vast arenas of power, love, and wealth, whose game are you really playing? Are you the strategist actively designing your own future, or have you just been a pawn in someone else's game this whole time? Master these psychological rules and take the board back.